Hello everybody and welcome to our second Wargame Red Dragon deck creation video. Today we're going to be looking at the NSWP nations, and today I have got with me Patton and Carnage once more. Say hello everybody.
Hello
Hi.
everybody.
And yeah, so we may as well get started straight away. I particularly quite like the NSWP. They've got a really well-rounded deck selection. So I'll start with the logistics as per usual, and I'm going to start with command units. So I've got for a wheeled command unit the SPW-60S from the East Germans. Really nice, fast 80 km/h transport. It's got that KPVT on the front as well, but generally it's just a nice fast transport which you can hide in a bush somewhere and is just really manoeuvrable if someone tries to throw something at it. As a benefit, it's also 40 km/h amphibious as well, so that's also got something going for it. I've only got the one command vehicle actually, so I'm going to jump straight onto my logistics. So I've also got a FOB in my deck as well. I've also got a T815 40-point logistics truck, really fast off-road, 100 km/h, plenty of supply in there, and you generally only need one to really resupply a town full of infantry. It's got that much supply in it. And just in case that's not enough, I have also brought the big-ass MI6 supply helo as well, for the rear supply lines, really. I love that helicopter, it's absolutely massive. So yeah, only 4 cards for me for logistics. So what about you, Carmen?
I've gone for the VSOT 64A/R2, basically 120-point wheeled transport, amphibious, 95 km/h off-road. Yeah, it's fairly standard pick really. And I've gone for FOB and the T815 Kolos, which is the 40-point supply truck. And as you say, got enough supplies in those to go for days.
Fair enough. And what about you, Pam? What have you brought to the fight?
Yeah, pretty much exact same as Carnage there. The VSOT, just because it's 10 points less than the East German one, and I don't know, I don't really find any weapon on those to be very useful, and it has all the other same kind of amphibious and everything else, which is kind of nice sometimes to sneak. And yeah, the FOB and the T815 for logistics. So.
You're actually making me want to change something here. I'm going to ditch the SPW as well and actually take the VSOT as well, because I've just realised it's faster, quicker amphibious, and I think has slightly better autonomy as well. So yeah, okay. You've made me switch some units there. We'll go on to infantry next, and I guess it's your turn, Carney.
Okay, well, I've gone for Leicester 40s in the SPW80. Honestly, if you don't have these in your NSWP deck, you're doing it wrong. I've also got a card of Commandosi in the Scott 2, which is just a nice little 10-point wheel transport. I've got 2 cards of Motschützen's 90 in BMP2, sorry. They're basically my sort of cheapish line infantry, and they're very good. The only thing that lets them down is the range on their RPG, really, which is a bit of a shame, but they're solid all-round unit other than that. I actually think they're really good value too. And last but not least, I've gone for the Conkers M in OT62A, which is like a 5-point transport base.
Wow. Yeah, I've gone for pretty much exactly the same. 2 cards of Motor Shoots and 90. I've took them in the SPW80s, to be honest with you. And I've sent the LSTR 40s and the SPW 70. No particular reason why. Commandosi with it in the Scott 2 AM, mainly because I do like that Malyutka for taking out light transports and stuff. It's not particularly accurate, but when someone sees 50 million missiles firing at them really quickly, they generally change their mind. And again,
I'm going to insist you change something, actually. Sorry to butt in. You really ought to take the Leicesters in the SPW80, because there is literally no reason whatsoever to take the SPW70 over the 80. Same price, same availability, better armour and a better gun.
Yeah.
I suppose.
And then the accuracy, bit of a buff on that too, double.
Yeah.
And yeah, same with the ATGM as well, really. Got the Conkers M in the OS OT62A as well. So yeah, exactly the same layout, pretty much, apart from what transports I'm taking them in. So that leaves you, Patton. Is yours pretty much the same, or have you gone for something a bit different?
Pretty similar. I do not have 2 cards of the motor shoots and 90s, but I have 1. And I went with the trained instead of, or hardened, I should say, instead of just a little bit more numbers there in the 80, SPW 80. A little bit quicker. LSTRs, SPW 80s, Commandozi, but I didn't use the A2M. I went with the 2AP. Just, yeah, I can kind of, sometimes if there's like some helicopters roaming around, the light stuff like Hueys and stuff, it can do a fair amount of damage. A little bit extra range. And Conqueror's M's, wheeled transport, and actually I find that grenade launcher, the Czech grenade launcher, to be a nice little urban type unit. It's got some good standoff range, a little over a kilometer.
They're a real pain in the arse to deal with those.
Yeah, the Granatomet AGS 17s, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess you guys took a little extra motor shoots in, but I went with that just because, I don't know, I find it's just something different that the Warsaw and the Czechs have. It's not a very common unit, so.
Yeah, it's very situational. I mean, especially if you're fighting in a town and you've got the Granatomet just off to the side, they can really smash things up. I generally will take them in a motorized version of this deck, but I normally find that they're not useful enough in a generic deck to really warrant taking them. But no, yeah, interesting flavour unit. So I guess that's support next. We're going through them pretty quickly today, aren't we? So I guess it's your turn, Patton, to lead on the support.
Sure. I have Strop 2s, just because they're Strop 2s. They're a
Yeah, they are
non-radar-based AA. Like, that's a no-brainer. Really good range on helicopters. You're not really gonna do a whole lot as far as like taking down planes and that, but I find it's good on the helicopter front. And then in that same vein, I guess Flak 256s. Basically, it's baseline Tunguska without the little bit better missiles of the Soviet one, the second tier, second line of their Tunguska, but I still find it's good. It's a little bit better at the airplane front as far as the gun goes. But really it murders helicopters is what its job is. And then carrying on for a little bit of standoff, good long range AA on the NUA. I went with like the wheeled version instead of the tracked, just because it gets to the front a little bit quicker. And if you need to like run it back to the FOB quick, sometimes it's easier to do that than to get a truck up there. Yeah, and then some 120mm mortars, the Czech ones, Pramas. And just for fun, I have some clusters, the BM27.
I'm with you. I mean, as far as the mortars are concerned, the only reason why I've chosen the what you call them, the Tunchkas or whatever they are. I'll probably get completely ripped for completely screwing that up, but I'm British, so I don't care. The only reason why I picked them is because they're small and the prams are medium. So if they are caught out, they're less likely to get hit quite as easily, especially when they're running away. But
Get a lower ammo count though.
yeah, but with mortars, I guess it doesn't really matter because you're just going to pull them back and rearm them eventually anyway. But,
I don't know, I'll just buy some more if I run out of ammunition.
I suppose, I guess. I prefer just to keep my mortars alive for as long as possible, but different styles of play, I guess. I've pretty much got exactly the same lineup, although rather than taking the cluster, I've gone with a pair of Ondavas. Really nice wheeled 152mm howitzer gun there. Pretty much counterproof due to its 80-kilometer off-road speed for an arty unit. It's just crazy. So you fire, scoot, and it's never going to get killed unless you get careless, really. What about you, Carnage? Any major difference?
No major ones. I've gone for the Czech Pram just because of the ammo count, basically. Strop 2s, they're excellent for that wheeled opening. Now, I've gone for the Cub M4 on hardened because the availability is broken on it. Because you can get 7 at trained and 5 at hardened, so taking them at hardened's kind of a no-brainer, really. It's basically a buck on an inferior chassis, basically. So that's pretty solid. Tunguska, the German jobby, and I've also gone for the Ondavas, though I do find that they do take a long time to fire their full burst, so you can't always rely on just queuing a move command after a fire order to keep them safe if someone's on the ball with counter arty. But yes, it's a fairly solid unit. I find the cluster, the BM27, to be rather anemic and doesn't really inflict enough damage. I don't really go for that.
Right, okay, well that's interesting. I guess I'll lead with the tanks then, really. So I've only got 3 at the moment in my deck. So I've got the T72M, just for a nice, cheap unit. It just rolls around killing things. It's got OK accuracy, 45%, 30% stabilizer, 12 frontal armor. It's just a good meat shield, really. I've then gone for a T72M1M. Really like this tank, actually, because the only problem is I've kind of got this tank for the ATGM, and the ATGM, despite being 50% accurate, isn't 50% accurate. I'd say it's about 25% accurate, because you can fire 4 of these damn things and it'll only hit once. But it's still a good unit. It's 15 frontal armor. It's got a nice, accurate 50% gun with a half-decent stabilizer at 40%, and it's got 18 AP. So it's a nice tank for 95 points. There's probably better ones out there. I'm sure you'll probably point me in the right direction if you find one for a similar price. And then I brought my favourite tank, the Moderna. I really love this tank. It's basically the Czech Super Heavy. It's got 21 frontal armor, so it can take a kick in. And as a bit of an extra flavour, it's got that 30mm autocannon, which is really good at engaging helicopters and infantry. And yeah, it can really smash things really well. And it's quite quick as well, 70 kilometers an hour. So it can really zip around the battlefield really easily. And what we're going to do now is go on to Carnage.
Okay, well, I've gone for the Moderna, basically for the same reasons, and also the Twardy. They're the 2 heaviest tanks you can get in NSWP. Taking the Twardy on hardened just because you're unlikely to need more than 4 sort of relatively heavy tanks. Also, I've gone for the 125-point Wilk, again on hardened. The 85-point Wilk, again on hardened, and I've gone for the base level T72 because I don't like any of the vehicles that NSWP have, and it's kind of my cheap fire support stroke meat shield tank, basically.
So you've got 5 cards of tanks in this deck, do you?
Yeah.
Wow, okay. Because that's, I mean, I know you like your heavy tanks as it is anyway, but normally you go with 4 cards on most decks, don't you?
Yeah, it just wasn't enough elsewhere that really made me want to really scream take me, so I thought 5 cards of tanks, they're not the best in the game, but you maybe make up for lack of quality sometimes with sheer numbers and having them slightly upvetted as well.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. And what about you, Pat? Have you taken 3, 4, or 5 cards?
4 I went with on this one. Just like Carnage said there, 2 cards of the super heavies, Moderna and the 91 Twardy. But my medium level one I use is the M1 Wilk. It's 85 points. Pretty good gun if you use the attack move and kind of stop to fire. Stabilizers are not so great, but and the armor is adequate for the price range. A little low, but other than that, that's kind of the mid-level one. And then my cheaper, like, fire support, I did go with the T-55 Dyna. Just, I don't know. It has that pretty good missile. That's the Czech T-55, the upper tier one.
Yeah, the Archon missile.
Yeah, it has a pretty good range on that missile. Stuff like that. It can hit things the odd time. And yeah, if not using it in that role, I just kind of infantry support type tank. So.
I'm with you. So I think that's the same missile that the BMP3 has, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly the same. Thing to
Yes.
point out about the Wilkes as well is, unlike some other tanks in Red 4 in that price bracket, they've actually got 9 rounds per minute rate of fire, so they compare very favourably with Leopards and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Pretty darn good.
You're making me rethink my choice of M1M now, because I really did take it for the ATGM, really, but looking at the Wilk, okay, you lose the ATGM, but you get those 9 rounds per minute, don't you? So I think I'm going to switch one of my units out here.
Tank, I think.
Yeah, you've made me switch it again, damn you all.
Yeah, and then for the amount, like they say, like some of those ATGMs on the armor, it's obviously a Soviet thing for the most part, but I don't know. Sometimes you really don't have the opportunity. You're fighting in within 1.5 clicks or something, and I don't know.
It can be quite handy if you do the sort of the micro with them switching between the gun and the ATGM. You can boost your rate of fire temporarily, and as long as you don't get stunned, you can outgun your opponent. But it's very situational and somewhat micro intensive too.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, really, I just want to roll my tanks across the field and murder people horribly, but that's just me, I guess. Right, okay, well, I guess it's the Recon tab next, and am I going first on this one? I think I am. So I've got 4 cards of Recon, and I've started off with the Prus Kaminski. Now, the reason why I've taken these over the Camp Schwimmer is purely because you get a 10-man squad. The stealth is still very good. It's not the exceptional you get with the sniper team, but you get more of them, and they've got that nice Dragunov SVD sniper rifle, which I find really, really cool. But they've also got anti-tank as well, a little bit better than the RPG-18 you get with the Camp Schwimmer. So overall, I think a 10-man squad is a little bit more useful than a 2-man squad. And the second card of Infantry Recon I've got are, of course, for Moses, because if you don't have these in an NSWP deck, you're doing it wrong. They've got that Paladin frag grenade launcher, which is just awesome. And if you catch something out in the open with them, they will literally just annihilate anything before it comes even close. I've got those coming in a Scott 2 AP as well, just for that extra anti-helicopter fire, just in case they get caught out on the way to where they're going. As a ground transport or ground recon, I've got that SPW60 PB ABS. It's got very good optics, it's very quick, it's also amphibious, and again it's got that really nice KPVT on it, just in case it gets caught out by any infantry sneaking up on it. So yeah, the final unit I've got is the W3U Salamandra. Really good recon helicopter this. It's got 6 HP, so it can take a stinger to the face and still survive. But it's also got that Cock-on M ATGM, which is pretty accurate. It's got a good stabilizer on it and decent AP. 22 AP will take out most medium tanks. And it's also got that 80mm rocket pod just for suppressing infantry as well. So all around a really good helicopter unit, I think. It's not too bad either. It's 260 kilometers speed, so it can get around quite quickly as well. So yeah, that's my recon. What about you, Connor?
Well, I've gone for the Salamandra as well. Red 4 doesn't have much in the way of combat recon, so it's nice to have something that can do some damage while spotting stuff. I've also gone for the AUF KPZ BRM1, and I've taken that solely because of the exceptional optics. The gun is basically useless, but exceptional optics are kind of brokenly good in comparison. And it's kind of handy for spotting targets for my Ontavas and more thought process behind Picking up, I've gone for the
User joined your
Formosa
channel.
in the Scott 2, just because they're retardedly good in urban combat. So. And last but not least, I've gone for the Specialny Gionnot
Jednotki.
B90. Yeah, let's check Recon Infantry in an MI-17. The MI-17 because it's awesome, and the handy for sneaking around behind the lines and blowing stuff up or hearing a strong point. So that's my heli-borne sort of element to the deck, basically.
So is that 3 cards you've got?
I've got 4 cards. So Salamandra, Formosa, that word I can't pronounce, and the BRM one.
Fair enough. Okay. And what about you, Pat? And what are you bringing to the fight?
Salamandra, obviously, like we've all kind of discussed there, it's quite good for Pact type Hilo Recon. Same thing on the Januti or whatever they are, the Czech Special Forces Elite Recon. But I use MI4s, I don't know. Just kind of being cheap, and they're a little more difficult to spot.
Don't you think they're a little bit, I don't know, slow as fudge?
It's slow as ass, but I mean, like I say, normally if I'm using these, it's not as a like opening insertion. I'd probably stick them on the side somewhere and just kind of bounce with the junk helicopter anyways, so. And then Formosa in Scott 2s, that would be like a good opening type infantry unit. They're elite, grenade launcher, huge rate of fire, primary, and the RPK. And I don't know, I went with this like OT65RL as a wheeled type recon. It's small, exceptional optics, has a little bit of amphibious. It's very, I don't know about very expensive, but at 55 points, it's getting up there. But it can move around the battlefield pretty well, and with exceptional optics, I think it's kind of nice.
Oh yeah, sorry, I couldn't find it there for a minute. I see.
Yeah, I was having trouble with finding it too.
Yeah, it's way down there. It's basically a BRDM2 Czechoslovakian edition, right? So.
Yeah, it's pretty brisk as well, isn't it, at 90 kph? Can't go wrong with that, I guess. Okay, fair enough. I'm guessing it's the vehicle tab for you now, Carnage.
Well, this is going to be very short. I have no vehicles.
Oh right, okay, fair enough.
I don't like any of them that much.
What about you, Pat? And did you bring anything?
I went with, I don't know, I guess I probably, in all honesty, after having not played this deck in some time, but I do have a Conqueror's M. It's a little expensive for what it is, like the BRDM2 in a Conqueror's M. If I was going to go through this right now, I'd probably change a couple things. I might go back and grab another tank instead of some of these vehicles, but this is what I have currently. Conqueror's M. And I do actually like this Pram S. It's kind of like an assault type vehicle.
Yeah, I must admit, I've got the Pram S in my vehicle tab, and I've also got the BRDM Conqueror's M as well, just as that sneaky ATGM just zips around, takes a shot, and then you run it away as fast as possible because it's made of paper. It's very situational, but it can come in handy, especially if you're on something like Bloody Ridge, you're pushing up past, well, I'd say the right-hand side, but it may be different depending on what side you're playing, but where you're doing the smaller town fight over the hills and such, you can kind of get a good flanking shot on tanks pushing through the middle there, and one of those in the right position can really ruin people's day. But yeah, interesting that Carnage didn't bring any, but then again, I've got 5 counter tanks, so it's understandable.
Yeah.
What about Helimachopters? What have you got in yours, Pat?
I do have the German DHS because, well, it's quite good. Because it does have the Molnia missile, or whatever you want to say, in numbers of 4, so it has pretty good range, pretty good accuracy, and it has a little bit of armor in case you're going against little Stinger helicopters and stuff. It can take a few hits and still fire back. And then the other one I have is just kind of like a cheapy Mi-35, the Czech one. Just because it has aid to those Kokons, good range, good accuracy, half decent stabilizer. Just as kind of a, oh shit, get it over there type helicopter, right?
Okay, fair enough. I mean, personally, I went for the KHS Mi-24P. Main reason for that was that's got the GSH 30K 30mm, which is nice. It's got the rocket pods, and that's going to be like my ATGM helicopter pretty much. And rather than taking the DHS, I took the Solcols instead, the W3W Solcols, because they've got those 4 Igla missiles, and if you're going to have an opener where you're more than likely going to have a helicopter AA duel, I'd rather take the cheaper helicopter than lose a really expensive, you know, bigger helicopter really. I know it's got the armour, so it's probably got a bit more staying power, but I prefer helicopter spam with missiles rather than expensive ones, which will probably get out-spammed anyway by Celtics or whatever they end up going up against. So I guess it swings and roundabouts with those two helicopters, really. What about you, Carnage?
Well, I've gone for the DHS just because of the AA missiles and the Kokons are kind of nice. Mi-35 as well. I was toying with the idea of taking a Sokol or an Mi-25 S-24 just for those insane rockets, but really not really worth it. The other stuff on it's not that special.
Yeah, the thing that bugs me about the S24 is those rockets are brutal, but it says you've only got 4, but when you actually look at the model, it's got 4 pods, and they've all got like 7 tubes in them, so you're there like, what? I want like loads of missiles, please. But
I think
yeah,
that falls under Ugbear.
very much indeed. And I guess the final tab we should be looking at is the air tab, so I guess you can lead with that one, Carl.
Dick. Well, I've got the MiG-29 9-13-5. It's the cheaper of the two MiG-29 ASFs. It's got long-range Vimpel semi-active missiles that outrange most of the fire and forget stuff, as it's only got 2 of them. Not being fire and forget isn't that big a deal because it just means you don't run out of ammunition so quickly. Gone for the Su-22 M4 Syria. It's quite a nice unit for popping tanks. They probably want to turn the missiles off when you're closing in on a tank and fire them just that little bit later to get a better chance of your hits. MiG-25 RBF, my carpet bomber, and the Su-22 M4P as my seed plane.
Similar, I guess. I think actually on my motorised I've slightly changed my air loadout, but this is going on what I used to play, so I'm guessing I haven't used this deck in a few weeks, but I've got a pair of MiG-23 MLs, the Czech variant. They're the 100-point ones, so they're a bit more expensive than the other MLs, but they do have that long-range Vimpel missile, semi-active, 7,700 meters, pretty accurate, and they're good sort of like in pairs, similar to the Tornado F2 really. They can catch a lot of planes out, and they're pretty quick as well. They're not too bad. Slow turn radius, but you know they're not too bad for a cheap ASF. I went for the more expensive MiG-29, the 913S, because that's got the fire and forgets on it. This was when I used to do the 3-bang on the ASFs, because I generally lose the MiGs in the opener normally. I've taken the same seaplane as you, the M4P Su-22, and I've gone with the MiG-29 912A, the Czech variant, the one with the thermobaric bombs on it, because I just love dropping them on a city block and watching everything burn to death, because they're awesome.
Yeah, they're pretty nice. I just don't find them to be all that powerful, but the platform itself's pretty solid. It's nice and survivable.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the point with that plane is it's a precision napalm bomber. So rather than an area denial like the Su-7BKL, which kind of just carpet bombs napalm everywhere, and generally dies in the process, this one at least can survive. And it's more for, let's say you're coming up against some Fallschirmjäger 90 or some other horrible shock unit like that. You just drop 4 of those bombs on and they disappear in a nice barbecue. It's I love that plane. It's so awesome. I guess it's on to you next, Patton. What have you brought aeroplane one?
Sure. Yeah, I got a well, the same as you guys were talking there with the seed plane Su-22 M4P. It's not particularly great, but it is one of the
It's the
few
best
seed
one
planes
you can
you
get.
have.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also like the MiG-25 RBF. Just lots of carpet bombing, almost in the same vein as that F-111 that you can get with the Aussies there. Not quite as good, but getting in the same ballpark. And what else do I have here? I have the Polish MiG-29. I have that one on Elite, I guess, here. Just has pretty good standoff range on its main missile, even though it's not fire and forget, but sometimes you can clip something. And, I don't know, this Czechoslovakian Su-25, just because I don't see a heck of a lot of other good planes out there that are, like, kind of anti-tank for the Pact, so...
Well, I think that's where the Syria comes into its own because it's, although I was going to say it's faster, but it's actually the same speed. But I generally find with the missile it fires, you've got a bit more of a guarantee that it's going to hit. Plus, with the Su-25, it generally takes 2 missiles to kill something, whereas the Syria can pop things with that 2 extra AP. But, you know, I guess it's to each their own. At least with the Su-25, you've got that loiter time. So it can hang around and lob rockets and things at things as well.
Yeah, I guess instead of having that smaller radius like that MiG-29 has on bombing, like city blocks, sometimes you can buzz in quick with those big 240 mil rockets and just do a quick little rocket run on something too. But yeah, that's what it is.
I find the problem with the Su-25 is it just gets hit far too easily, and while it may not go down because of its armour, having only 10% ECM just turns it into a missile magnet, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I mean, the Syria is not much better. It's only got 20% ECM, but it's still going to maybe live a little bit better than the other one.
It's got a better chance of firing its missiles and evacing safely, whereas the Su-25 you're likely to overfly the target as you fire off all your weapons.
Yeah.
But yeah, it depends what you want to use it for, really.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, okay. I guess that basically does everything for the NSWP. Any particular favourite units before we leave? Anything that takes your fancy?
I'm a big fan of the Wilks.
Well, you've converted me across to the M1 Wilk at least anyway as a good medium tank. What about you, Pat? And anything that you really like in this stuff?
Yeah, I gotta go with some of the armor they have here. It's pretty, some of it's really nice. This is also a good one to make an armored deck on, but the Moderna, that's a pretty sweet tank. I like it.
Yeah, it is a beast, especially with that auto cannon on the top as well. Personally, I'm going to pick the LSTRs, to be honest with you, because they've got that fantastic Igla missile, which really does catch out helicopters, and they've got the best anti-tank AT weapon in the game, I think, which is the RPG-29, the Challenger 2 killer, as I like to call it, especially if you wander it too close to a town that they're sitting in. Yeah, I really, really like them.
Yeah, they are kind of brokenly good. You compare them with the
Yep.
SAS and you'll find yourself crying in a corner somewhere.
Absolutely. Okay, guys. Well, thanks very much for helping me out with this video this time around. And to everybody watching, I really hope you've got a good idea on how to build a decent Red 4 deck, especially if you're new to the game. Not a lot of many people pick Red 4 as a starting deck. Most of them go Blue 4, but if you make a deck something similar to this, then you're going to get a really well-rounded deck with some pretty brutal units in there, and if you use them right, you know, you're going to have a really good time. So thanks very much for watching, all, And next video is probably going to be another Blue 4 video, because we're going to try and interchange between Red and Blue 4 as much as possible. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye.
See ya.